Hello and welcome to the Universal Law Community Trust Minister Mven training. I am Minister Mven and I hold the rights of use and the assignment of consent of the legal fiction of the creditors who have now retired from crediting the accounts which are created in the capitalised version of the given name. Now, most people will be aware who are watching this video that the incorporation of the given name into the surname and the capitalisation of it thereof would imply that you have consented to, by using it, to the Crown Corporation and all of its legislation that it decides to write. Now, that in fact is fraud. You are all committing fraud when you use that legal fiction. Obviously we've been encouraged to do that, but if we're to examine the things that we've been encouraged to do, such as, for example, take out the birth certificate. Now, if this has been issued from Crown Corporation, you'll see at the bottom that there is a Crown copyright symbol at the bottom. The document is inside a box, and in accordance with Chicago Styles and Syntax Error Fraud, anything inside a box is exempt from the document. So when you place your name inside a box, and then anything that's written in relation to that document, it means that the non-entity is not included in the body of the document. So by helping people understand what it is that they've actually been doing, you have got a choice now as to whether you continue to be a creditor of a system that operates a slavery system en masse, or whether you have reached legal majority and can no longer be considered therefore a legal minor. How do you do this in practical terms? And what is Minister Mven? So when somebody stops you and asks you, who are you? Nobody can actually say that with any truth and any evidence as to who they are. The documentation that we're also familiar with pulling out of our pockets or bags and brandishing universally, making the claim that this is me. Being your ID, your Tav-Totito if you're in Greece, your ID card in Europe, your passport, driving licence if you're in the UK. Now, because you have just claimed something that technically isn't yours, you've stepped from being in alignment with all of your rights and in completeness with your divine trust, which is between you and the Creator. So what you have actually done is assigned your consent to be part of a corporation and subject, therefore, to their acts and statutes and commercial code. Now, when you realise that this is what you've been encouraged to do, using a document that clearly states not to be used for ID, and then going and getting a passport with that document or another form of ID, or opening a bank account and then obviously using that ID that you've created for creating more contracts with, it will perpetually perpetuating fraud, and we're obviously being encouraged to do so. Now, the way that the consent that you are implied to grant, it comes through the use of the name, the use of that legal fiction. Under the Theft Act, you can see the definition of attempted theft is the right, is the claim of right of something belonging to another. So if you come along and you claim that your company name or your business is Adidas or Volkswagen or McDonald's, then obviously you would be committing intellectual property infringement and copyright theft, because that's already a branded logo. Now, your what you would consider your name, your title to be the prefix with Mr, Miss, Mrs or Ms, stands for miser. It means debt slave. And the abbreviation of Mr, Ms, Miss or Ms can also be, if we decided to, be an abbreviation of minister. So you are really ministering an account that you didn't even know that you had created on your behalf through your parents, assigning you into the Crown Corporation or its universal equivalent in whichever country, state you reside in or were born in. So the documentation that you've been using in fact represents your share of the planet and its resources, divvied up into tiny little segments and put on the stock exchange to be used for commercial activity that was supposed to then stand surety to all of your liabilities of having to exist in a reality that allowed commercialism and capitalism to exist. So obviously what is happening is those accounts are being laundered without your knowledge, and every time you give consent to bringing life to something that's got no more life to it than a piece of paper, you are crediting that name. So when you assign your consent, you're assigning your consent to yourself, back away from the system that might like to imply that you've just given it to them, and you are then granting yourself back the right of use of all of the equity that was once crediting those accounts for you to minister and invest your energy, therefore, in a way that is not detrimental or causing harm, because at the moment, obviously, all of our accounts are being used to commit through various forms of terrorism and tyranny with. So by you stepping out of that role of a debt slave, with that capitalized version of the given name, you are removing your consent and rebutting the presumption that it's been given. Now, for them, those that would like to imply that you belong to them, it's for when you come along and you actually give physically and visually the assignment of consent to another, then there is absolutely no misinterpretation of anything that has been written down. So we would recommend that if you go and you follow these processes that we've done the steps for you for, and with very great success, I might add, that you are going as either Minister Mven, if you feel confident enough about doing that, or you can visually assign your consent to somebody who will act in the role as Minister Mven on your behalf once you've assigned your consent away from the Crown Corporation and you stop funding them. Obviously, this is completely pointless if you're going to go and assign your consent back into your own trust, that you're the trustee of inside a trust, that you are the executor of a series of trusts, which is your community trust, and then into universal law community trust. So it's a trust within a trust within a trust, which you are the trustee, the executor, and the beneficiaries thereof, which is really the trust that the Pope Boniface was supposed to have created for us all. To all of the Christians were to be the beneficiaries of the earth, which was supposedly assigned by God unto the Catholic Church. So this is why I'm dressed like this. This is not my usual garb, but this is to rebut the presumption that's being made about the ecclesiastical standing that your soul has already been claimed as salvage through the baptism or the christening, and therefore your soul has been salvaged by one particular religion or another. Now, because the way that the structure of legal systems works The ecclesiastical standing is the kind of the pinnacle of the division of where it all we became divided from our universal source self by agreeing to be something other than what we were, and we don't really know what it is that we are. So if we go to a point where we can say, right, well actually I don't know what I am, I've become indefinable. So when somebody stops you and says, who are you, you don't define yourself any longer as the ID of the legal fiction. You have your own legal fiction, which is Minister Maven. And Minister Maven is your legal representative, if you like, your token in this game now that you completely control, that you know that first of all that you had some consent and that you could assign it, that it was being implied and being abused by a system that you got the opportunities to rebut. So by going, if you feel confident enough by going into the court and stating that I am Minister Maven, that I hold all of the assignment of consent in this matter, and I hold the authority to act, which means that therefore I need to ask you, where is yours? Because I have it all here. Isn't that like, well, who are you? Well, I was once the creditor of that account, now retired. You're taking all your roles back and putting yourself back together into the powerful thing, it's an indefinable thing that you truly are, without anybody kind of usurping you in your roles. You don't need a lawyer, you don't need an accountant, you don't need a doctor, you definitely don't need the tax office, and you are in your private state of being. So you are stateless, you haven't got a contract with anything other than the creator, whatever that is, and you are part of and in universal law. So when we walk into the court, we say, all stand for universal law, so that the people who are there to support you, sorry about that,